Have you ever heard a story that made you say, "No way, that can't be true"? Today, I have a story just like that. This story is about respect. It is about pride. It is about a lesson that nobody will ever forget. This is the story of the day a French woman disrespected Ibrahim Traoré, the president of Burkina Faso, in front of everyone. What happened next will shock you. You will not believe it. So listen well, because this story is full of surprises. It was a hot day in Ouagadougou. The sun was high. The sky was blue. People were busy in the market. They were selling fruit, bread, and peanuts. Children were running and laughing. But everyone was talking about one thing. The French were coming. The French were coming to meet the president. People were excited, but also worried. They said, "Will the French respect us? Will they treat us well?" Nobody knew what would happen, but everyone was watching. The French cars came. They were big and shiny. Out of the first car came Madame Lucille Moreau. She was tall. She wore a blue suit. She had a small, cold smile. She looked around, but she did not smile at the people. She did not wave at the children. She just walked fast, her head high, like she was better than everyone. People whispered, "She looks proud. She looks like she does not care about us." Right away, you could feel something was wrong. You could feel that something big was about to happen. Inside the palace, President Ibrahim Traoré was waiting. He was young, but he was strong. He loved his people. He loved his country. He always listened to the old people. He always tried to do what was right. When Madame Moreau walked in, she looked around and whispered to her helper. So simple, so old. She thought nobody heard her, but some people did. Their faces changed. They felt hurt, but they said nothing. Madame Moreau walked up to President Traoré. She gave him her hand and said, "President, I hope you are ready to learn something today." Her voice was cold. The room went quiet. Everyone was watching. President Traoré smiled. He said, "Madam, in Africa, we say, the river does not talk about how deep it is, but it can drown anyone who is not careful." Madame Moreau did not understand. She just smiled a little and sat down, but the people in the room knew. They knew something was coming. The meeting started. The French talked about their plans. They said they wanted to help Burkina Faso, but Madame Moreau kept talking over the ministers. She laughed at their ideas. She said, "These plans are not serious. They are like children's games." She said, "Without France, where would you be? Still in the dark, I think." The ministers looked at each other. Some were angry, some were sad, but President Traoré stayed calm. He said, "Madam, in my village, we say, the chicken that laughs at the eagle will not see the morning." Madame Moreau just laughed and waved her hand. She did not care. The disrespect was clear. The room was full of tension. Everyone was waiting to see what would happen next. After the meeting, the news spread fast. People in the city were angry. They talked about it in the market, in the streets, and at home. "How can a guest come to our country and speak like this?" they asked. But President Traoré did not get angry. He called his helpers and the old people. He said, "We must be wise. We must show respect, even when others do not." That night, he sat by his window and looked at the stars. He remembered what his grandmother used to say, "When the lion is quiet, the whole forest listens." He knew he had to do something, but he wanted to do it the right way. The next morning, President Traoré invited Madame Moreau to visit a village outside the city. She said yes. She thought she would show everyone how smart and important she was. They drove on a bumpy road. They passed fields of corn and millet. Children waved at the cars. Some ran after them, laughing. When they arrived at the village, the people came out to greet them. They sang songs. They danced. Their faces were full of joy and pride. Madame Moreau looked uncomfortable. She did not like the dust. She did not like the simple houses. She whispered to her helper, "Why are we here?" She did not know she was about to learn a lesson she would never forget. President Traoré took her to the village square. An old woman was sitting there, making a basket. Her hands were strong. Her eyes were kind. President Traoré knelt beside her and said, "Grandmother, please tell us a story." The old woman smiled and began to speak. She said, "Once, there was a proud peacock. He showed off his beautiful feathers. He laughed at the other animals. He called them ugly and simple. But when the rain came, his feathers became heavy. He could not fly. The small, humble sparrow showed him where to find shelter. The sparrow shared her food. The peacock learned that pride is heavy, but kindness is light." The villagers clapped. The children laughed. But Madame Moreau rolled her eyes and said, "What does this story have to do with me?" She still did not understand. President Traoré looked at her and said, "Madam, in Africa, we do not measure a person by their money or their power. We measure them by their heart. You came here thinking you were above us, but you have much to learn. Suddenly, a young girl walked up to Madame Moreau. She was holding a simple clay cup filled with water. She said, "For you, madam." Her voice was shy, but her eyes were proud. Madame Moreau looked at the cup. She did not want to drink, but President Traoré said, "In our culture, to accept water from a child is to accept the gift of life. To refuse is to bring shame upon yourself." Everyone watched. Madame Moreau felt their eyes on her. She took the cup and drank. The villagers cheered. The children danced. But the lesson was not over. The old woman spoke again. She said, "Madam, you have tasted our water, but have you tasted our respect? That is earned, not given." Madame Moreau looked around. For the first time, she saw the pride in the villagers' eyes. She saw their strength. She felt small. She felt humbled. President Traoré stood up and said, "Madam, you came here to teach us, but today, you have learned. In Africa, respect is the greatest treasure. Without it, even a king is poor." On the way back to the city, Madame Moreau was quiet. She looked out the window. She saw the fields, the people, the children playing. She saw not poverty, but pride, not weakness, but strength. At the airport, before she left, she turned to President Traoré and said, "President, I came here thinking I had all the answers, but I see now, I have much to learn. Thank you for your lesson." President Traoré smiled and said, "Madam, the world is a big place. There is always more to learn." She nodded and walked away. Her heart changed. But the story does not end here. The people in the city kept talking about what happened. Some people said, "Did you hear how the president stayed calm? Did you see how he showed respect, even when he was insulted?" Others said, "This is why we are proud to be from Burkina Faso." The story spread to other villages. Old men told it to young boys under the big trees. Mothers told it to their daughters while cooking. Even the children told the story to each other while playing. The story became bigger and bigger. One day, a group of school children visited the palace. They wanted to meet President Traoré. They wanted to ask him about the story. One small boy raised his hand and said, "President, why did you not get angry when the French woman was rude?" President Traoré smiled and said, "My child, if you answer anger with anger, the fire only grows. But if you answer with respect, you show your true strength. Respect is like water. It can calm the hottest fire." The children listened. They nodded. They understood. Later, Madame Moreau wrote a letter to President Traoré. She said, "Thank you for teaching me. I came to your country thinking I was better, but I was wrong. I learned that respect is more important than power. I will never forget your lesson." President Traoré showed the letter to his people. He said, "See, even people who make mistakes can learn. We must always be ready to teach, but also ready to forgive." The story of that day became a lesson for everyone. It was not just about a French woman and a president. It was about how we treat each other. It was about how we answer disrespect with respect. It was about how we can be proud of who we are, no matter what others say. The story was told in schools, in markets, in homes, and even on the radio. People said, "This is our story. This is our lesson." And so, the story became a legend. It was told again and again, each time teaching a new generation the importance of respect. Some people even made songs about it. Some painted pictures of the day. Some wrote poems. The story lived on, not just in words, but in the hearts of the people. This is the story of how a French woman disrespected Ibrahim Traoré in public. But what happened next shocked everyone and taught a lesson that will never be forgotten. In life, it is not power or money that makes a person great. It is respect, kindness, and the courage to stand up for what is right. Remember this story, and let it guide you in your own life. Always treat others with respect, no matter where they come from or who they are, because in the end, respect is the greatest treasure of all.